And we're live.
Good morning, everybody. We got people in attendance. Why don't you raise your hand and just put an OK in the chat, and we can see how many people we got going here, and we will know when to get started. And of course, I hope everybody got their Jimmy Johns. Hello, everybody. We got 16 participants. Please come on board. We're going to get started here in just a minute. I hope everybody got their Jimmy John's lunch. And if you're like me, you're inhaling it. So. All right. Tony, if you take a look at that first chat line there.
Yep, I'm taking care of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we got 12:01. We'll give it one more minute, see if we can get some more people here. We should have a little over 30. I see we're up to 20 right now. So let's give everybody another minute or so to join us. Here we go. Another one. All right, I got a few minutes after now, so we'll go ahead and get started with everybody. Welcome to Cross Country Mortgage Short Sale Webinar. I'm glad to see so many people here. I hope you're enjoying your lunches. Our guest today is going to be Donna Pacchini from Team Pacchini, and they are a company that works with various attorneys in the Chicago area as short sale specialists and negotiators. And Donna's going to be able to answer all our questions and tell us about how this all works. I know if some of you people are listening, if you've been in here and been in the industry since about 2010, I'm sure you're kind of familiar with what a short sale is and what it takes. And we'll get in that in just one second. But first, I did skip something here. I should introduce myself. My name is Jay Mulholland. I'm a branch manager and sales manager for Rich Kimball. Rich is under the weather today, so he was not able to be with us. So I'm filling in for him. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So Donna, a short sale, what is that exactly?
Well, it's not something that goes shortly, that's for sure. But it basically just means that we're shorting the person or the company that the money is owed to. So we're trying to get a mortgage company, a bank, a servicer to accept less than the amount owed so that the property could be sold when the value is less than the amount owed.
Very good. How long you're saying it's not really a short process. How long does a typical short sale take?
Your typical short sale, in my opinion, will take 90 to 120 days from the day that all the paperwork is received from the homeowners. And I think this is a big step that most people just fail to remember or think about. It doesn't start when the contract is signed and turned in to everybody, because from that perspective, all the documentation needs to be obtained from, well, basically from all sides of the parties involved in the transaction, but most importantly, from that homeowner or homeowners. You're basically unapplying for this mortgage. Okay. So, but the same concept, it's the same concept. So instead of well, what did Rich tell me? You called it a URLA now, URLA, right? I
Right.
still go by 1003, but instead of the URLA form, you'll have a 710, an RMA or an MMA, but it's the same thing. I want pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns, the whole concept, or the whole packet has to be submitted to that short sale lender. Instead of trying to prove to the lender that the homeowner can afford to make the payments, we're trying to show the lender that they can't.
Oh, that's a little different than lending.
It is, but it's the same.
Okay. So the difference between a short sale compared to a regular home sale, it's just basically the time it's going to take?
Sure, because you don't have to prove anything to anybody when you're just selling your home, right? In the short sale world, we have to prove to one, maybe two, heck, I've even done 3 lenders to prove to those lenders that they should be allowed to short sale their home, and all of those lenders to agree to accept less than what is owed to them.
Now, is this process normal? Is every deal the same, or are they all kind of different?
Every file is different. So every lender is different, every servicer, right? Along with then the second would be adding the end investor. So you can't really compare, in my opinion, you can't compare one file to another. You could have a Wells Fargo Fannie Mae, you could have a Wells Fargo FHA, you can have a Wells Fargo Chase, where the note's actually owned by Chase. You can have a Wells Fargo VA. You see what I'm saying? So the forms are all different too. You would have thought after all these years that these lenders would have gotten together and come out with one simplified form, but let me tell you, they all have their own forms, and some of them have their own forms that are different and more specified to the actual investor itself.
Wow. So it seems in, like the last 10 years, though, they really haven't changed to make the process more efficient.
No, they have not. And when they thought things were, calming down a smidge, they just let people go. So from that perspective, where everybody's like, oh, well, there's less volume, but all that meant was that the lenders also have less people working on it. And when you added COVID into the mix, then they took so many people out of loss mitigation and shoved them into COVID relief. It's been an interesting few years.
What causes most delays?
Actually, a lot of things can cause delays, but my biggest thing is it's not, and I believe one of your questions I'm going to answer in this answer too. People also ask me, why does it take so long? Which lender is better than the other? Blah, blah, blah. But to me, the biggest thing that causes the delay or could cause it is who's assigned to my file. So it's not even, is Wells Fargo better than Chase, or who's better, who's really bad, who's assigned to the file. So like, did that person start yesterday and they're totally clueless? Do they have 200 files on their desk and they're so overwhelmed they can't see straight? Do they have an attitude? Or my favorite one, do they just suck at their job? And sometimes they do. So that's the biggest delay, is volume, in my opinion, with these lenders, that there's only so many people and those people are handling way too many files.
Well, what's the bank's decision process for this approval?
You know, that's a very good question, Jay, because other than FHA where, again, it's going to be different.
So having an FHA loan is going to be different process than going if you had a conventional loan.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. FHA short sales are much more difficult than a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac private paper, even VA. They will go through everything. They will analyze and then they'll reanalyze and then they're going to overanalyzing, they're reanalyzing. And I think that's just because they're afraid, because at the end of the day, it's not Wells Fargo or Chase that's on the hook for this, it's HUD. So these lenders are afraid that if they don't cross all the T's and dot the I's perfectly, that HUD's not going to insure them and they'll get stuck with
Gotcha.
that. But the biggest thing with the FHA is their HUD is all about retention, whether the homeowner wants to keep the home or not.
Okay.
The rules are very different. They have to have a lot of, I'm not going to go into the details because it's very detailed, but they have to have certain things in order to qualify. The other ones, your conventionals and whatnot, honestly, I can't answer that because sometimes it just makes no sense. I've done short sales for people that seriously make bank and you kind of go, I don't understand. But they still get approved. So
why would a bank choose an auction over a short sale or vice versa?
Well, some of the banks and you have some servicers that bought a lot of these for pennies on the dollar, or investors that bought for these notes for pennies on the dollar, but still want to make bank. So a lot of times you'll hear that, and HUD will actually say this too, because I talk to people down at HUD all the time, is it's actually cheaper for them to foreclose. If the property, it's a big if though, it's a big chance. But if the property goes to judicial sale auction, okay, they're not paying all these expenses. But that's a crapshoot. Is somebody, an outside person, actually going to buy it at auction, or is the bank going to end up with it back and ending up to having to sell it as an REO? I don't know.
Okay. I've seen it advertised before with some listings that the property has a bank approval. Does that
There's no
carry?
such thing.
That's what I thought.
There is no such thing. Okay. Because they're approving the offer. So the homeowner may already be approved to do a short sale. Okay. That would be the first half. And that's a big part. Okay. But at the end of the day, it's the offer, and all the offer documents still have to be reviewed and approved. Now, it could be that it's going to get approved, that you've now received an offer that has fulfilled the obligations that are requirements, of that particular servicer and an investor, but it still takes time. And the biggest issue with saying that it's approved, I don't even like agents to say approved price, because let's see, FHA appraisals are good in our world, are good for 4 months. VAs are good for 6 months. Fannie Mae's are good for 6 months. Freddie Mac's is good for 90 days. So it just depends on where you are in that process. And then private paper can be anywhere from 60 to 90 days. So, I mean, I don't know how you can say it's approved unless you flip it. Like I just told an agent today, I said, look, this is what I call a bottom feeder servicer. This is what they want. We've hit that magic number. I've got it good through September 10th. You can list it as approved price, but only through the end of this weekend, because otherwise, again, value expires.
Got it. Sure. Well, what would disqualify a property for a short sale?
It's not so much the property that would be disqualified. It would be the homeowner or the offer. Okay. Just very similar to lending. These banks, these servicers, they want what they deem the value to be. So if you can't get an offer that satisfies what their net requirements, what their price requirements are, you're just not going to win. And again, as far as homeowners, other than again, FHA, to me, the one thing that'll disqualify you is if you're current.
So you need to be behind?
You have to. And you got to tread lightly on what you tell people. But I kind of tell them the same thing no matter who I talk to. And it kind of goes like this. At the end of the day, the one thing that we have to show these lenders is that you have a financial hardship, okay? That you can't afford to make these payments. Now, how the heck can I do that if you're paying? Now you're saying I can pay, I just don't want to. And that's a contradiction. Now,
how do you interact with the homeowner regarding that? I mean, I'm sure some of them might get a little offended by things.
Well, you know, in much nicer terms than I'm going to say it right now when I have conversations with homeowners, and I love talking to homeowners, by the way. I establish a great rapport with them. But the facts are the facts. You don't get the best of every world. You don't get to walk away from tens of thousands of dollars completely unscathed. So when somebody says, I don't want to not make my payments, I don't want my credit to take a hit, again, you don't get the best of every world. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's guidelines actually state that they will review you for a short sale if you can show them a future hardship. And I'm telling you, it's never happened. And Mike and I have closed over 4,000, and every one of them has been denied, no matter what. They're retiring in 3 months, too bad. Not well, in 3 months, then it'll get approved. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So going through the short sale process and not making your payments, that's going to affect your credit. And you let them know that this is what's going to happen. Okay.
It's for the most part, the majority of the homeowners that we deal with are already in trouble. Okay. So at a certain point, the bleeding won't stop for them on the credit until the property is sold as a short sale or it actually is foreclosed on.
So the best way to actually, because you're already behind, then to help your credit is go through with the process and start repairing your credit.
Exactly. Get it done, call it over. And you know, the one big difference, well, the two big differences between the short sale and letting it go to auction or be final foreclosed on, one is the biggest thing to me is that it's my job to do whatever I can to make sure that that homeowner is completely waived or released from that deficiency balance. So if you're $200,000 upside down, I want to make sure that when we close that my approval letter says, and by the way, you don't owe me nothing anymore. We are good. We are golden. We're done. And by the way, I can no longer sue you for that balance. So it stops there. So that
sounds like it would be real important.
It is very important. Whereas if it's foreclosed on, it goes to auction, that bank has that right. They've gone to judgment. They have the right to sue them for that deficiency balance. But it usually takes longer to go to auction. So the bleeding doesn't stop as quickly if you can get the short sale done. And sometimes, you know, it's a timing issue with that homeowner too, on when they can be out, when they want to be out. You know, again, we can't make everything perfect for the people.
Should the realtor get personally involved with the negotiations themselves?
You know, I'm very biased on that. My answer is no, they shouldn't. I know of many agents that, you know, do a great job on their short sales, but unless you're doing a high volume, there's constant changes and so many little things that you just don't know unless you're really doing it 24/7. So I'll give you an example, silly little thing. So you call up and they say, well, we didn't receive the June bank statement. Well, yes, it was sent to you on this date, or via email, blah, blah, blah. What they meant to say was we didn't get every page. So instead, what they're telling you is we just didn't get it. All right. We didn't get the application form. What they meant to say was they didn't date it. Do you see what I'm saying? So they'll deny it. They'll actually deny the short sale for piddly stuff. And if you're not on top of it.
All the more reason to have a pro like yourself handling this stuff.
Well, we double check everything, including their debt versus their income. And again, having been a loan officer for so long, It's easy to, to calculate.
Well,
We don't want a good DTI.
well, how would a homeowner know that a short sale is the best process for
I'd say that's specific to everybody, to me, to individually. To me, it's good for them depending on what their goals are. Okay. Is their goal to try and get a loan modification? Do they really want to keep that home? Is there a way to make those numbers happen for them? Is their goal to get out and move out of state? Is their goal to get out of this mess? What is their end goal? And all we can do is try and work around that.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the only reason you would short sale is because you need to sell the house for whatever reason, and you owe more than it's worth. You don't really have much choice other than to short sale or let it foreclose.
and you was kind of mentioned this earlier. Can you do a short sale if and continue to make your payments?
I've never had one approved that I've ever submitted in my entire 10 or 11 years of doing them. So what can I say?
Okay.
I'm going to say no. Actually, the only time I can, technically, legally tell people not to make their payments, FHA actually's guidelines say that they have to be a minimum of 31 days past due. Again, it's not going to, it's that contradiction in financial hardship. Now I can pay, I just don't want to. And I'm not saying that their reasons aren't good ones, but the lender's not going to think any of them are good ones, because at the end of the day, they don't care if you're eating hot dogs for the rest of your life or if your kid goes to, to whatever college that you want.
What let's say we're going to go the short sale route. Is there any way to guarantee to get the value we need to make it work, or?
Of course not. There's no guarantees, and values are probably, in my opinion, the biggest crapshoot. Okay. I've seen them send somebody from Tinley Park to do, a BPO in Rockford, and, values. So it's really a crapshoot on what I spend half my life on value disputes. So
Is there an advantage for a homeowner to use a short sale rather than do a deed in lieu?
Well, there's, to me, in order of best to worst, it would go, short sale, deed in lieu, and then foreclosure. Deed in lieus aren't as easy as you think. This is the exact same process to do a deed in lieu. It's required the same process as you do on a short sale. You can't just say, here's my keys, I'm done with you, right? Because if it were that simple, everybody would do it. So you still have to have the same forms, you still have to provide the pay stubs, the bank statements, the tax returns, and you still have to prove to that lender that you cannot afford to make those payments. Now, you have some servicers that'll not do that review, but there may be 2% of them out there, and we know who they are, and that's fine. But it still has to go through the process. It's not as simple as I'll just give it back to you.
I mean, it seems like some of these banks don't know really what they want to sell the property for. Is there any way to navigate that or work with that or get them?
It comes back down, Jay, to what we said before, in that it's a crapshoot as far as who's doing those values. Some of them will do appraisal, some of them will do BPO, some of them will do both, one of each. But then it also comes down to timing. Some of them are good for 60 days, some of them 90 days, some of them 4 months, some of them six months. So if those values expire, then a new value comes out, but it's being done typically by another agent from a different area. What is their value going to come out to versus the previous person that did the valuation report? It's hard. Like I said earlier, we spent a lot of time fighting value.
How long does it take, once you have the appraisal into the bank, I mean, how long does it take for the bank to complete the process at that point?
Well, that depends too, because every investor and every process is different. Every lender, every investor, they're all different. And some of them are better than others,
like during a short sale, is the seller responsible for any village inspections or code violations, or can the buyer maybe pay for those things?
That's typically done in the attorney's approval. And if you look at your contracts, and I'll send it back, I review every contract for technicalities, not from the legal perspective per se. That's where I leave the bosses to do that. But from what I know, what the short sale lenders are going to require. And those properties, page 12 of your 7.1 contracts are as is, and then the short sale, and then the short sale addendum, which again repeats that it's as is. Now, if I had $10 for it every time I wanted to say, what part of as is don't you all understand? I'd be rich. But, we try to let them know that, it is as is. The village requirements, are what they are, but that's going to be specific too. I mean, not every short sale client is broke. Not every one of them isn't willing to assist in helping and getting things done and paying for some of that stuff up front or what needs to be done. So that's going to be again a file specific.
How should a first-time home buyer approach a purchase of a short sale?
With a lot of patience.
As you said, it's not going to be done in 30 days.
90 to 120 days if everything goes perfectly.
Okay.
If we have to fight value or not, we're adding another 30 days onto that.
Wow.
If we have a crappy seller, again, 90 to 120 days from the day we can submit it. So some of these take 6 months, 7 months. It's time.
As far as the bank's concerned, do they give any preference to somebody who's going to own or occupy versus somebody who's buying it as an investment?
It's all about the dollars. They could care less who's buying it. They could care less. Cash is not king. It's all about here's what we think the value is. Here's what we want out of it. And even from that perspective, the investors are different. So to me, Fannie Mae is all about price. Price. Freddie Mac's all about net. You see what I'm saying? So it just is what it is. They're all different.
Why do you think some attorneys stay away from doing short sales?
Because they're awful.
The attorney's awful or the process?
The process is awful. Oh, I see what you're saying. No, the attorneys are not awful. Because they're smart. I would say most of them, because you have to be there. It's really difficult to get a hold of some of these lenders, and if you miss their call, you might not be able to get through to that person and actually speak to him or her for another week, 10 days. And again, being that every file is different, if you really aren't working in this full time, you don't know the difference. You're using the wrong forms. You're applying under the wrong guidelines. You're maybe sending somebody, trying to get someone approved that's making great money on an FHA short sale that's never, ever, ever, ever going to get approved. So I'd say, either they need to have someone handle them, or I don't blame them for not doing it.
Okay.
They're a lot of work.
Do you think, when do you think the volume of short sales is going to pick up?
I have no idea. People ask me this all the time, what I think is going to happen with the market and all of this COVID and everything being on hold as far as evictions and auctions. And to me, it has to happen at some point. At the end of the day, the courts and everybody, to me, they're just delaying the inevitable. It's going to happen. When, I don't really know. And it'll be different, I think, for different people too.
Okay.
And I also think that we can't pay attention here in Illinois to the national statistics either. Because when your monthly escrow payment is higher than your principal and interest, that's a problem. And
I see that.
Illinois, I have too. Illinois is, still has short sales. I mean, Mike and I have been busy all these years. So when it's going to go crazy, if it's going to go crazy, I don't know. It'll be a little different than the crash, because at least these lenders have some concept of what to do, where, you know, in the crash, they had no clue what to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Right.
Like it was impossible to figure out and maneuver.
Is the headache worth the gain?
Depends on who's asking that question. Um, the homeowner, to me, yeah, absolutely for the homeowner, because they're hopefully going to get out of owing the money without having to, with having that balance completely waived, without having to worry about getting sued. You know, people don't realize these banks have years to come after them. So for the homeowner, yeah. For the agent, if you're not doing it yourself, yeah. If you're doing the work and trying to be an agent at the same time, you're sucking up all your time where you could be finding new listings or new buyers for your, or property for your buyers and whatnot, by trying to handle the short sale processing side. If you can walk away with your commission, as long as you're patient, and knowing, and you have your great team in place and knowing that you will get paid, yeah, that's worth it.
Doesn't matter when it closes, so long as it closes.
Exactly. You know, I've been
Um,
teasing lately that I
uh-huh.
think every one of these is taking a year off my life. So, you know,
Now, as a seller, a homeowner, I sell my house on a short sale, and the bank loses $20,000 on this transaction. That $20,000 loss to the bank, is that a taxable event to me, the seller?
well, I will not speak as if I'm an accountant because I'm not allowed to do that. However, I will tell you that the Mortgage Debt Relief Act has been extended through the end of 2025. And that says no, but only if it's your principal residence.
So if it's not an investment property,
It
then
does not apply.
it would most likely be a taxable event.
Right. And if it questionable, in my opinion, depending on which accountant I talk to, if the property goes to auction and is foreclosed on, whether or not the Mortgage Debt Relief Act actually applies to you, or if you are actually taxed on that shortage, if you're foreclosed on, even if it's owner occupied.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So.
All right. Looking at some of the questions here, can you kind of like go through give us an version of the process, starting at the beginning to the end, and what
Sure.
kind of obstacles do we see along the way?
Sure. Basically, think of it again as a mortgage process, is applying. So once we get an offer, just like y'all as a loan officer, we will go through the contract and start at sending out documentation for our homeowners to complete and asking for all the documentation, pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns. I personally start with a one-page simple information sheet and an authorization form. That one page gives me a lot of information. And from there, once I know who the lender is or are, the investors, I then from there will prepare, or Mike, we will prepare a detailed short sale packet that is specific to that homeowner and to their lender and or investors. So when we send out a short sale packet, it's not a generic one. It'll be, if it's Wells Fargo, Fannie Mae, it'll be all Wells Fargo's documentation that's specific to Fannie Mae. It'll have the Fannie Mae authorization in there. It'll be complete. And then we've templated everything. So we'll make sure that everything is populated. We try to make it as easy for the homeowner as we can. So they literally just have to check a few boxes and sign, fill in their financials by the time they actually get their packet from us. Then they need to complete that packet, send it to us along with their pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns, whatever we ask for. And from there, we'll submit it to the appropriate lenders so that they can get the process going. The majority of them will start with retention review, which is basically for a loan modification. See, a few years ago, the federal government decided that people are just too stupid to decide for themselves whether or not they want to try to keep their house or sell it. So the feds made sure that they gave guidance in that every homeowner should be reviewed for a loan modification. For the most part, if that loan mod is approved, again, outside of FHA, those homeowners can opt out and opt to move forward with the short sale. Once that retention phase is done, then it comes down to contract and offer review. Typically at that point is when the BPOs and appraisals will be ordered. But again, different, if it's Fannie Mae, I'll be ordering value while I'm waiting for them to finish their retention review, but I can only do that with Fannie Mae. You see what I'm saying? So it'll be a little bit different.
So depending on the investors, how long it takes and the obstacles you face are going to be different.
Yep.
And you mentioned too, investors, plural. Does that mean that sometimes you have to get an approval from two different banks on the
Sure.
same loan?
Sure. Sometimes I've actually had to do 3. And then you run into the issues of title too, because I've actually had to get 2 short sale approvals, an IRS lien release, and a state tax lien release, where I now have to show the feds in the state that these people can't afford to pay either and get their approval to sell the property. So again, every file is it's specific, and some of them get to be really ugly. But if you know what you're doing and you set expectations, that's the biggest thing, is to set your people's expectations.
Yeah, and that's good. We've been talking about the borrowers and what they're going to see and face. What is the incentive for the banks to do this? I mean, what's the benefit to them? Because they're banks. They're not nice people.
Well, actually, a lot of them are really nice people, and they have jobs because of this. Actually, I guess what they're thinking is that they don't end up with just a ton of REOs and foreclosures on their hands, and they get to save face and go, oh, look at me, I'm Wells Fargo, I'm Chase, I'm so nice, I help these homeowners, I put them through hell trying to do so, but I'm a wonderful bank because I gave them some hope.
Yeah, I know there are regulatory issues too with banks if they have so many REOs, so they want to stay away from that as well, because they can face other penalties and or further securities that they have to make, or securities.
Right. So it just depends. I'm not sure what their goal is to get them off their books. And sometimes you actually have to wonder if they make it more difficult, because you and I know that there's timing things here too, as far as on paper for these lenders. I've actually had my short sale service release in the middle of the transaction. Okay, now I have a new lender. Yay! I got it.
We got to start all over again. Yeah.
I got to start all over again. And sometimes it's not just service release. Sometimes it's sold. So that changes not only the servicer, but the end investor. So, I'm not really sure what these banks are. I think it started because of the crash. They had to do something. And it's been this way for all these years, which is odd. Because back in our day, if you couldn't make your payments, your house is gone. That's it. You're foreclosed on. But this is like some kind of new norm. So will the short sale world always be there? I wonder. I don't know.
Is there a place where realtors, loan officers, somebody can look up information on homeowners who are behind on their payments?
Your title companies can jump into that, and you're going to be looking for them to search their pre-foreclosure people and notices that are just filed. You have several auction companies, and attorneys that list their properties that are going to judicial sale. And if you get them far out enough, you might be able to save them, or having it, get them to work with an attorney that'll assist them in the foreclosure defense, so that the property could be short sold at that point. There's various companies out there that can assist you in finding properties. The question is then, can you actually get a hold of the people?
Is there an official website for real estate auctions in Illinois?
No, you've got your Judicial Sales Corp, you've got auction.com, you've got Shapiro and Kreisman has their own, you've got Lake County has one, and you might see it on Lake County's website, and Shapiro and Kreisman, because maybe it's Shapiro and
they're getting them from the same. Yeah.
DuPage County has a list of their auctions.
Usually the auctions are handled on a county basis. You have to check with each county what there's. I know with Kane County, you go to the sheriff's department and you can get the information from there.
Right. But your bigger foreclosure attorneys will actually have lists. So, I can shoot you off a couple of those websites. If people want to check them right now, they're just kind of blah because everything's on hold.
Yeah.
Again, depending on county at this point.
So let's say they release the moratorium on evictions, then are we just going to see an explosion of things coming to the market, or short sales or auctions?
I don't know, because here's the way I might be a little jaded after doing this many short sales, but the renters that have they don't have to pay. So that at the end of the day, when the moratorium's done, they're going to get evicted, and these landlords are never going to get paid. Okay, so then you've got the landlords who were allowed to get quote unquote a deferment or forbearance, but at the end of the day, they still got to pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
And they may just go, well, now I'm so upside down, it's not even worth the headache anymore. Screw it, I'm done. To me, that's going to be a personal thing. And a lot of these landlords and people in general are just fed up. They're working really hard to, I think that there's a bad thing in the government, feeling of, well, if you're a landlord, you must be rich. And, I know I'm a landlord and I'm not rich, but I think that I don't know. I really, and then you have the people that aren't just renting. So the people that have been on these forbearances for, I think 18 months now, and they keep extending.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not consistent because Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac will put them on what's owed. Let's say they're 50 grand behind, they'll put it on the back end as a second mortgage, non-interest bearing. But if it's private paper, they don't have to do that. So some of them now are reevaluating their payments, and they'll put just the principal and interest on the back end as a note, but now they're going to reanalyze those negative escrow accounts, which are jacking up the escrow. It's a mess. And it's not a consistent mess because every investor is doing what they want to do. I don't know. It's to me, it's going to get ugly. I just don't know when.
Okay. All right. I think I've been through most of the questions here in the chat. Does anybody else have any other questions they want to put in the chat we can address before we move on? I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch from Jimmy's John's. All right. Donna, is there anything you'd like, final comments or remarks you'd like to make?
No. Somebody just said, what is the typical what from Maria? What is that?
All I got is what is typical.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, all I see is what is the typical, and that's kind of where they ended it.
All right.
They want to know your fee. Yeah.
Well, my fee or the agent's fee? Our fee, because Mike and I actually work for attorneys. So we work for 30, heck, I quit counting. I don't even know how many attorneys we handle short sales for now. So we get paid through the closing or through the attorney. The majority of the short sales from the agent side, the majority will pay you the 6%. Some of a guideline is, I'll answer that question, the split in a second. So if it's a servicer investor guideline that some of them have 5% or whatever, then Mike and I typically know those that this lender will only pay 5%, but the majority, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, and some of the private paper will pay the 6%. And to answer that question, what is the split 3 and 3? Everyone, virtually, I bet you 98% of them that I see has a 3.5 plus whatever and a 2.5 minus whatever split. So but that you need to make sure that that's listed in the MLS accurately. And I recommend that you put in the MLS that if there are any required commission, if the commission's cut for whatever reason, that will be split equally. So that if you do have it listed at 6% and that particular lender only does 5%, then the listing agent's not eating that whole 1% cut. But typically you'll see the 6%.
Okay. We have a question about the timeline for short sales, and we were talking they're going to take at least 90 to 120 days.
Yes, you have the occasional, heck, I just got one done in a week, but that's like 1 out of 100. So I wouldn't count on that. They don't happen very often. Again, that's that particular investor and servicer, that particular one, they only care about what they're getting. And as long as they're getting what they want, they're done, they're good, but the most, and they're not doing any of that financial review. So again, 90 to 120 days from the date that it's submitted, we have all the documentation to submit.
Okay. Can it take over a year to close these sometimes?
Yes. And your question is it a year with one buyer or contracts that have fallen through?
So you have to keep going back because you got a new contract.
Yeah, I have one that's closing on Thursday after 2.5 years and 5 contracts. So I'm going to be a really happy person on Thursday. And I might not just celebrate with a glass of wine, but maybe a whole bottle on that one. But a lot of things come into play, and usually it's numbers. When they run in that long, it's usually numbers or crappy lender or whoever's submitting it not knowing what they're doing.
Is there a source, someplace people can go to get more information on short sales?
Not that I know of.
It's all about experience. Yeah.
Well, again, it can't be so generic. A conversation, Jay, that I would have with you, let's say you have an FHA short sale and Tony here, let's say she has a Fannie Mae short sale. My conversation is going to be completely different between you and Tony. And
Gotcha.
Even if it's Wells Fargo or Chase, even if you both have the same servicer, my conversation is going to be completely different with both of you.
How long, the question is, for how long from when the borrower stops paying their mortgage does it enter short sale? It's up to the borrower more or less, or to the seller.
And the majority of them, I personally like to see them at least 61 days past due, preferably more like 90. But again, circumstance, that's going to come down to, well, I just lost my job, or my husband died, or do you see what I'm saying? It's not the same answer per instance. It's going to be different. If it's an FHA one and I say you got 31 days past due, let's talk. Start sending your paperwork. But the majority of them, you'll have to have an offer in order to even get reviewed.
Right.
So
does it make any difference if a buyer is offering cash?
Nope. No difference at all. All they care about is the dollars.
Okay.
Okay, plain and simple. Cash is not king, not even remotely. So they think they're going to get a low offer because it's cash. It's not. If their value comes out at 200,000, I'm telling you that bank's going to want 200,000 at least.
Okay. Any other questions here? Donna, do you have a final remark?
No,
There you go.
How did Donna start in the short sale real estate? I was a loan officer for 25 years, and then that crash hit, and my husband was in the trades. So that was a great time. And I was a top producing loan officer, so that was kind of harsh. And then one day I got a phone call from my brother-in-law, who happens to be an attorney, and he says, exact words I can't say, I have these blank things coming on my desk called short sales, and I have no idea what to do. But I figured you, Donna, would be able to figure it out. And literally we figured it out. And then another attorney called, and then another attorney called, and now
one thing led to another.
Yeah, and then Chicago Title refers us to their attorneys, and Precision Title. So even Baird Warner Title refers us to their attorneys. So, which is actually kind of smart because they don't put the title offer there, but it just kind of dominoed from there. But
very good.
It made sense to me because it's just like unapplying for that mortgage.
Well, Donna, I want to thank you very much for coming on board and help present this for us. We hopefully educate a few more realtors on this process. And because, I do believe that we're going to be seeing more of this down the line. Don't know exactly when, but probably sometime within the next 6 months or so, something will happen.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And any of you, I'm sure that Tony or Jay will be happy to forward you my contact information if you have any
Yes.
questions or you want to have a chat. We're happy to chat with you.
We will get that. Anybody wants that, ask, go through Tony and she will have that information
I'm
readily
gonna
available
put it in
for
the
you.
chat now. I'm just getting
Okay.
it.
Okay,
All right,
excellent, Tony.
everybody. Well,
All right.
it's about 98 degrees here at the lake, so I'm gonna go out and catch a little bit of sun because this pasty face has not seen any, even though I've been down here for a couple of weeks. So everybody have a great rest of your week, and hopefully our paths will cross again sometime soon. And Jay, thank you for being such a fabulous host.
Appreciate that. Thank you very
For
much.
doing everything you do that makes you so wonderful.
Thank you very much.
All right, bye
All
now.
right. And realtors, I hope you guys enjoyed your lunch. I know I enjoyed mine. I was surprised to get it. Like I said, I'm just filling in today for Rich. He's a little under the weather, so I appreciate your patience and dealing with me. And hopefully you've all learned something. And if you have further questions, again, you can contact Tony or Rich or myself for that matter if you want more information. So you guys have a great afternoon, and let's go sell some more houses.
All right, ciao,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Ciao.